Welcome. It's your man, God of Dots. Back. Brother took a little break, but I'm back, man, with NFL content. Back. We're looking forward. I hope everybody's had a good week thus far. I've been kind of busy for myself, working a little bit extra, trying to get some stuff in place. Brother got a vacation coming up, so I want to make things are in order. Um, let's kind of just get into it. If you don't know, now you know July 18th, rookies report to training camp. Training camp officially starts. No more OTAs, no more mandatory off-season mini camp. We about to start real heavy into the football. Like I said, rookies are scheduled to report at all training camps July 18th. And then most veterans and the rest of the players will be reporting on July 25th. But tonight's episode is kind of a follow-up to the video on my channel. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go check it out. How you doing, Miss Mario? Yes, we're doing the NFL stuff. But let me kind of get into it. Looking forward to like I said, looking forward to the season. But tonight's episode is mainly focused on the Contenders. I want to take a little deeper dive look to the Contenders. I know I did a video on it last week, I believe. Shouts out to those who watch, like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. But tonight I want to have a general conversation with those who want to chime in and want to join in on the conversation. While I'm talking about joining on the conversation, let me go ahead and drop this. In the event that somebody chooses to come up and join me, I don't do these shows too long. I like to kind of get in and get out with this. But we're going to start with the AFC. I don't want to really focus on the Kansas City Chiefs. They've already had a video dedicated to them on my channel already, as far as some of the moves that they made, my preseason predictions, as far as them repeating as Super Bowl champions. I'm of the opinion that they don't. But if I'm going to say that they're not my Super Bowl pick, and I'll make my Super Bowl pick soon as we get closer to the season. I got to look at how training camp goes, how teams are looking in preseason, what roster moves are still being made by those teams. But when I look to the AFC, I really look at it as a 3-team race. Outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm not going to focus on them, but I want to look at the 3 teams I think that could possibly unseat them as AFC champions and move on and play in the Super Bowl this upcoming season. Team number 1, let me back up. Now, my predictions are based on those guys. What's going on, Grown? My predictions are based on those teams not suffering real heavy on the injury side. And of course, if a superstar player gets hurt, quarterback, such that kind of changes the scope of things. But I'm assuming these teams get through the season with minor injuries at non-key positions. But I want to start with probably the biggest threat in the AFC, and this is just my personal opinion. The biggest threat in the AFC to the Kansas City Chiefs repeating as Super Bowl champion is probably the Cincinnati Bengals. The reason why I have Cincinnati as my number 2, and it's a close number 2. It's not that big of a gap between Kansas City and the rest of the AFC. AFC is very stacked, but I had to pick 3 teams. My 3 teams would be, the Bengals, Buffalo Bills, and wait for it, the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, so let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals. A great debate the other day, Grown. Appreciate you for coming through, participating. It was a good time had by all, good conversation. We'll chop it up on something else sometime down the road. We're working over here. But let's get into why we here. I got Cincinnati as being, like I said, close number 2, mainly being because of the diversity of the offense. I think Buffalo, when we're talking about passing wise, can match up fairly even, relatively close to Cincinnati. But I think Cincinnati ground game gives them just a bit of a slight edge, and the defense, I think, gives them just a bit of a slight edge. I know Buffalo has a much more touted defense, much more recognizable names when we're talking about the Von Millers, Michael Hodge, Jordan Poyers, guys who have made multiple Pro Bowls on that defense. And we're going to talk about Buffalo's defense and some of the changes that they made this offseason. But when we're talking about Cincinnati, it starts and begins with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, quarterback out of LSU, has really shown a lot of growth each season. Um, Showing a lot of growth each season. I know his rookie season was kind of rough. That's because the team didn't really invest in the offensive line like they have the past couple of seasons, and his weapons needed to mature along with him. And I think they're in the right place at the right time right now. I think if anybody's going to knock off Kansas City in the AFC, it's got to be Cincinnati. Joe Burrow can go throw for throw with Patrick Mahomes. Granted, they don't have a Travis Kelce at tight end on Cincinnati, but who can match up as a wide receiver room? And there's very, very few teams that can say they have a wide receiver room that can compare with a Jamar Chase, a T. Higgins, and a Tyler Boyd. I mean, when you're talking about a very clear number one in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who is a very good too, but it could be a number one on a lot of other teams. And then you have a Tyler Boyd, a guy that could be a number two on a lot of teams, and he's locked in as a number three. I think Cincinnati, with the additions that they've made the past couple of off seasons and drafts, as far as addressing the issues with the offensive line, allowing Joe Burrow to kind of stay upright, open up some of those rushing lanes for Joe Mixon, who I'm expecting to have a bounce back season by his standards. I think Cincinnati will be a much more balanced offense coming into this season. I think they're going to lean a little bit more heavy on the run, a lot more play action involved in that offense. But I think Cincinnati offensively has the tools to go blow for blow with the Kansas City. I think where Cincinnati is going to be able to overcome Kansas City if they meet up again in the playoffs, and those have been some very, 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 very good games in the playoffs between Cincinnati and Kansas City. I think the defense, people don't really talk about them because they don't have a lot of household names. If you're not a major football fan, you wouldn't recognize a lot of those guys that they have on the defensive side of the ball. Here I'm thinking I'm recording a video. But I think the front seven is very solid. Now, probably the biggest question mark that I have in regards to Cincinnati and their defense is, what is that back four going to look like? You do have new safeties playing in those positions. You did lose Von Bell and Jordan Bates back there at safety, a very nice, very good tandem back there. But you did draft Daxton Hill last year, second round pick. I think he's ready to really step in to a leadership role in that back secondary. The corners are okay, but with the pressure that they're able to put on teams with that front seven, you don't really need lockdown corners. But I like the pieces that Cincinnati has in place. The only question I have is how will the secondary look after losing those two good veteran players on the back end? That'd probably be the only question mark I would have as far as Cincinnati's defense. Like I said, I'm not going to focus too much on injuries. Injuries happen. But I'm just kind of like looking at it. Everybody coming into the healthy, and who I had to pick, Cincinnati will probably be my Super Bowl pick coming out of the AFC. They will probably be my Super Bowl pick coming out of the AFC, and not too far behind them. Like I said, I didn't want to pick Kansas City. That's cliche. If they repeat, they repeat. It wouldn't be that great of a surprise. But I think coming in number three, and it's a very close number three. Like, I think the top three teams in the AFC are pretty much locked down. And number three, you got Buffalo. I think Josh Allen, just like Joe Burrow, has shown a lot of maturation in his game, and his game has evolved. For a period there last season, Josh Allen was in the running for MVP. Is an MVP caliber player. Has shown he can be a big time player. Have good receivers on the outside with Stephon Diggs and what's the little boy name? Davis. Yeah. You have good receivers on the outside. The only question I have with Buffalo's offense is a question I don't have with Kansas City. This is a question I don't have with Baltimore. And it's a question I don't have with Cincinnati. Is the run game. Did Buffalo do enough this offseason to address the run game? There's also been reports out there that Buffalo has brought in Dalvin Cook for a conversation, a free agent former running back for the Minnesota Vikings. They brought him in. I think if you're able to bring in Dalvin Cook at a fairly reasonable price, I think that's kind of what's been holding up Dalvin Cook being signed by a team is his asking price at the moment. If you're able to bring in a player of a Dalvin Cook's ability, he's able to stay healthy, and that's another issue when we're talking about Dalvin. Can he stay healthy for a whole year? But if you're able to bring in that kind of a talent to add to the mix of what you already have on the offensive side of the ball, I think Buffalo could possibly leapfrog Cincinnati. I think Dalvin Cook is a much better running back than a Joe Mixon. The receiving core is not on the level of a Cincinnati, but it's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, you do have a true number one, you have a true number two. I think you'll find a guy that can play the number three position, possibly play out of the slot. I think you'll be able to bring somebody in. You already have some guys that you're kind of looking at in camp. I'm kind of curious to see who makes the roster at the receiver position for Buffalo. I'm also curious to see what is the chemistry going to be like for this upcoming season between Stephon Diggs and management. It was a little bit of a code word kerfuffle this all season in regards to Stephon not being happy or being satisfied with certain things. It was reported early that he missed some of the OTAs that they was expecting him to be at. He did show up for the mandatory mini camp, but it was a bit of a issue because it was reports saying he didn't show. His agent said he was there. I'm not sure how that's going to affect them in the upcoming seasons because we know wide receivers, especially today's wide receivers, they're divas. These guys are divas, and it doesn't take much for them to kind of get out of sorts mentally. If they feel like their contract's not right, they feel like they're not getting enough touches, they're not getting enough targets. What does that look like? I think Buffalo will take this kind of same approach they took last year, unless they're able to kind of bring in a top level running back. I think that's the only thing they're missing on the offensive side. I do like the pieces that they have on the offensive line. Offensive line is just good enough for this team to make a deep run and possibly make it to the Super Bowl. But we'll see. The defensive side is probably the biggest question mark I have for Buffalo coming into the season. And if you watch the preview video that I did, pretty much two things on the defensive side. One, how do you replace a player of Tremaine Edmonds' skill set? Tremaine Edmonds, middle linebacker, who ended up signing a big offseason contract with the Chicago Bears to go play with them. What does Buffalo look like at the linebacker position? I do know they have Matt Milano also there, man in the linebacker position, but he's not Tremaine Edmonds more. As far as what we're talking about, physical ability and talent to make plays that most players just can't. Tremaine Edmonds was a very unique linebacker as far as we talking about size and speed and that combination. Is Buffalo going to be able to replace them? Does it change how they do things schematically? And the other big question mark that I have is Von Miller. What does Von Miller look like after coming off an injury? We haven't seen him on the field since he got injured. It's been reports that he had a couple of delays, a couple of setbacks in his rehab. What does he look like? Can Von Miller make it through the entire season? If they can answer those questions on the defensive side, I think Buffalo has a chance to, like I said, make a deep run in the playoffs. I just don't think they have enough. I don't think they have enough to overcome the Cincinnati and the Kansas City Chiefs. I just don't. But they are a close third. They are a close third. And probably my kind of move on here, probably my most surprising pick as far as like my contenders when I look at the AFC as a whole. I was thinking about Miami, but Tua doesn't give me that much confidence. I was thinking about the Chargers, but I got to see what the offense looks like now that they have Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator. I've seen what that looks like in Dallas, but what does that look like in with the Chargers? What does that look like? Did Justin Herbert take a step forward? Do they have somebody emerge as a possible number one, number two receiver? I know they do have Keenan Allen, but Keenan Allen's getting a little bit older. He's not able to separate like he used to, and he suffered some injuries. suffered some injuries. So I didn't pick the Chargers for that reason, and I was also leaning, I was also leaning to the New York Jets, but I got to see what the Jets look like with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. Because, like I said, Aaron Rodgers is a name, and Aaron Rodgers has a track record. Has already got him a bus ready for him in the Hall of Fame. But is he really going to be able to take the Jets over the top offense? Yes, he is an upgraded quarterback, but is he really going to be able? Because he didn't look that good last year. Let's keep it 1,000. You can blame it on injuries. You can blame it on having young receivers, which he'll have also with the Jets, guys that you don't know, guys that you haven't played with. They did lose a key weapon, I believe, in my opinion, at wide receiver with Elijah Moore being moved during the offseason. You do have pieces there. You do have pieces there. You got Wilson. You brought in Lazard to play receiver. I think Randall Cobb has also got brought in. Rogers, Miss Murphy said Rogers should have retired. The diva in him, and that's a whole separate show, Miss Murphy. That's a whole separate show, and I'm gonna get into it just a little bit. It's funny. We used to give so much flack. Now I'm talking about, I'm talking about, the general public used to get so much flack to how Brett Favre would drag out his decision each and every all season, holding the team hostage. Um, as far as, will I play, won't I play? And you're starting to see, not starting, but it's really come out in the last couple of years, the diva in Aaron Rodgers. I would have picked the Jets, but is there something about picking the Jets to possibly be in the Super Bowl I just can't get? And like I said, Aaron Rodgers, he had an okay year, but it wasn't nothing to brag about. It wasn't like teams were beating down the Packers' door to get Aaron Rodgers, and especially at the price tag that he's playing at. Do I think the Jets can be pretty good? Yeah, but they're not in my contenders. And like I said, I looked around and I wanted to find another team to kind of add into that mix as far as the AFC is concerned. And I had to go to Baltimore. I do like the fact they was bringing back Lamar Jackson after all the offseason drama that his contract and him caused. I'm glad he was able to get his money. I think the offense is going to be a little bit better with OBJ out there. Now, OBJ is not the same receiver that he used to be when he played with the Giants, but last time he was on the field, he showed he could be a very serviceable wide receiver, and he's not necessarily a dominant 1A, but I think with enough targets and health being considered, what I saw when he played with the Rams, as he kind of got his feet up under him and he played more and more and more in the system, he showed you he still has some of that OBJ left in him, and I think that's going to be a huge, huge help. What Baltimore wants to do, because too often teams would just load the box against Baltimore because they didn't really have any respectable wide receivers on the outside. They do have two very good tight ends, but you got to be able to stretch the field. And I think if you're able to stretch the field, able to open up lanes, it only helps the running game. And you have to include Lamar in the running game because he's part of a lot of what they do schematically as far as RPO on play action. So I think having the receivers on the outside is going to help them. I do like the pieces that they have on defense. I'm kind of questionable for not signing Marcus Peters, but I get it. I'm kind of questioning that, them not re-signing him, but the price tag and his age and his injury history, I get it. I think Baltimore, with that division, I think they have a real good chance to compete with a Cincinnati. And depending on how, the seeding kind of falls when we're talking about the playoffs, I could see Baltimore winning on the road if they have to. I could also see, if things break right, it wouldn't surprise me if Baltimore wins the division. AFC North is probably from top to bottom one of the most competitive overall divisions. I do have Pittsburgh as one of my dark horses, and we'll do that for another show when I'm talking about my dark horse picks, teams that may not be on everyone's radar, but they're on mine. But I got Baltimore as my number 4 team as far as AFC contenders are concerned. Do I think they're winning the Super Bowl? No. I think if Baltimore's able to get to the Super Bowl, I don't see them beating the NFC representative. And I'm gonna get into the contenders for the NFC in just a minute. I don't see a Baltimore beating a Dallas. I don't see Baltimore beating a Philly. I don't see them beating a San Fran. I just don't see it. I don't think they match up well with those teams. But I can see Baltimore with the right breaks, as far as seeding is concerned, possibly getting to a Super Bowl. And that's kind of like my list of contenders for the AFC. Let me kind of look in here. Ron says I think he got a few years left in him. I like the days when players stuck with their championship teams and retired for them. I kind of get that, Miss Burke. I like, guys, when you become a household name with a team, sticking with a team. But it's today how the NFL is, and not just the NFL, sports in general. Players are just on the move. Players are on the move. Guys that you would think would never play for another franchise end up having to play for another franchise because at the end of the day, it's a business. I could say, you talk about Aaron Rodgers with Green Bay. I could think about J.J. Watt with Houston. I couldn't see him playing for another team, but he eventually did. I remember Emmitt Smith not being able to retire with the Cowboys. It happens. It happens. At the end of the day, these teams are going to make business decisions. Nostalgia and what you've done for the franchise, be damn. What can you do for us now? What can you do for us now? And speaking of what can you do for us now, I want to kind of get into my NFC. Like I said, I did a video. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. I did a video as far as discussing my NFC contenders and the questions that I have with them. Probably going to start with my team first and foremost. Going to start with the Dallas Cowboys. Questions. And the questions that I have are not on the defensive side of the ball. The questions on the offensive side. One, will the removal of Kellen Moore calling plays have a major impact on how the offense is run? Two, is Tony Pollard. I know he's back and he's saying he's 100%. He's ready to go. Is he going to be able to make it through the whole season? Guys coming off those leg injuries, especially late in the season like he did. Is he going to be ready to go? It's going to take him some time. Three, is Dak going to be as mistake prone as he was last year? Dak normally is a quarterback who takes care of the ball, doesn't put up gaudy numbers as far as touchdowns, but the amount of turnovers that he had was very concerning for me. As a fan, like I said, all my questions for Dallas come on the offensive side of the ball. Like, what is the team going to look like? Mike McCarthy will be taking over plays. I think the last time McCarthy called plays when he was with Green Bay, 2015, 2016, last time he was actually calling plays for them. So I'm curious to see what it looks like. I think defensively they're going to be okay. I do like the pass rush. I do like them bringing in Stephon Gilmore as a clear number two. And Stephon Gilmore, if you didn't watch him last year with the Colts, has shown flashes that, hey, even though he's a little bit older, a little bit slower, can still be a lockdown corner. I like how he complements Diggs. I think Diggs is going to, honestly, in my opinion, I think Diggs is going to get targeted a lot more than Stephon Gilmore, because Gilmore doesn't really take the kind of risk that Diggs does. But defensive side of the ball is not a question mark for me when I'm talking about Dallas being a possible contender in the NFC to come out of that conference. It's offensive. It's offensive. I do know that, we have still a decent line. I do like the receiving core. I do like bringing in Brandon Cooks to that receiving core to add along with CeeDee Lamb and Gallup. The question I have is what's the philosophy going to be, and how's the play calling going to be? Mike McCarthy is not the best when we're talking about calling plays and clock management. Jesus Christ, I don't even want to get into all that. But just as I have Dallas is one of my NFC favorites going into the year, I have to start with the top two teams. And for me, it's 1 and 1A in the NFC. I'm going to start primarily with My division rival, the goddamn, I'm sorry, with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, defending NFC champion, and rightfully so. They earned it. I'm not going to make excuses. Like some 49ers fans was making, like, if we had a quarterback, I mean, you just got to play what you got to play with. I think Philadelphia was lucky last year to not get hit with the injury bug at the key positions like a lot of teams were very late into the season. I think Jalen Hurts takes another step forward. Will he be able to repeat the kind of campaign that he had last year? I'm not sure. Not to say he's going to have a down year or a bad year. I think it's going to be a different kind of a year. I think when they're losing them off their offensive coordinator, him, he got hired by the Indianapolis Colts to be the head coach. I think the offense is going to be a little bit different. You do have to account for the departure of Miles Sanders. But I think they started phasing him out late in the season. And if I'm not mistaken, he only played like 10 snaps in the Super Bowl. But it's, Philadelphia hasn't had a real dominant running back in a long time. So it's been running back by committee. And with the RPO style, much like with Baltimore, Jalen Hurts is very much a part of the run game. So I think they'll be fine. I think Devontae Smith takes a step forward. I think A.J. Brown continues to be a true number one receiver. I like what they have on the offensive side of the ball. And that's kind of, where I have them 1-1A with the 49ers. Question I have on defense is defense. And it's not a big question. I think Jordan Davis is going to be able to step in and replace the production of a Hargrove, maybe not at the same level. But I do like the pieces that they have on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know if they got much better at linebacker. I know the pass rush is expected to be very premium like it was last year as far as like the sack totals and getting pressure on the quarterback. I don't know if the linebacker core is there yet. I'm not sure if they're there yet. I mean, they have young players, Nolan Smith, N'Kobe Dean at linebacker, former Georgia players. I know they're highly touted, high draft picks, but are they ready to really bring that, fill that hole at the linebacker position? I think the secondary is going to be just fine. I do think they're going to miss Gardner Johnson out there, man in the slot and safety position for them. But Darius Slay kind of got his act together. There were I do like the pieces that they have on defense. Like I said, question mark is going to be: are the young guys ready to step up and be productive? Are the young guys ready to help this team take the next step? Not only getting to the Super Bowl, but winning. You have to put Philadelphia, and I'm a Cowboys fan. Trust me, it burns my goddamn soul. It burns my goddamn soul to even think to put Philadelphia as a favorite over my team, but I have to. They got less question marks to my team, and they have probably they don't have a question mark at the most important position, which is quarterback. I think Jalen Hurts is firmly set. I think he's firmly entrenched in what they want to do offensively. He doesn't really put the ball in harm's way like a Dak Prescott did last year, and he's much more, he has much more credibility, much more game tape than what we have out in San Francisco. When you think about San Francisco, the only question I have with the 49ers going into this season is that the most important, because yes, Miss Murphy, it hurts my soul. It hurts my soul. But the 49ers have a question at the most important position, and possibly sports. And we're talking about the quarterback position. Is Trey Lance, first of all, is he ready? Is he 100% back healthy? Is he ready to step in? We haven't seen, he has no game film. We're going into year 3 with Trey Lance. They gave up a lot to get him. They don't want to give up on him. Right now, he's kind of penciled in as the starter, but I think he has a very short leash. And the reason why he has a very short leash, because you do have Brock Purdy, currently listed as the number 2 quarterback, even though he is coming off an injury. So what is he going to look like coming off an injury? San Francisco that's the question that, they have it covered everywhere else. When you're talking about running back, they have one of the best in Christian McCaffrey. Very good receiving core, very good tight end, very good, offensive line. you can make the argument with San Francisco being just a tad bit below offensive line when we're talking about between them and Philly. They have a question mark at quarterback. What's going on, Spot, man? We not doing the hate this season, man. We're not doing the hate this season. But 49ers, that's the only question I have. And it's crazy when you think about it, because I think they match up well as far as the defensive line. I think San Francisco has a much better linebacking core with Greenlaw and Fred Warner, man in the linebacker position. I think they have a comparable enough secondary. But the only question I have with San Francisco is quarterback. Do you run with Trey Lance? You gave up a lot to get him, and I think his leash is going to be short. I think the benefit to San Francisco, first 5 games, and I'm gonna be optimistic. I'm gonna go 4-1. A welcome game. I'm gonna go 4-1 for record. I'm gonna do probably start next week because, like I said, training camp officially kind of starts next week. Kind of do like a team by team breakdown. Each day, Monday through Friday, and kind of really get into some of the position battles and stuff. But I think I gotta see, I gotta see how some of these teams look coming out of the preseason. We're talking about major injuries, because injuries are bound to happen. Teams have changed coaches, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. Like if you watch my video on the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the biggest questions I have for them of the upcoming season is not, can they repeat? Is what does the offense look like for me? Biggest outlier for me. What does the offense look like with Eric Bieniemy going to be the offensive coordinator in Washington? I think Washington is going to be a much better team. And I'm not happy about that because they're a division team. I want all the teams in my division to be sorry, but that's just not the reality. I think the NFC East is going to be a much tougher division because I think Washington would be enemy as offensive coordinator. And let me go on record in saying this: I'm surprised he took the job for offensive coordinator in Washington. It's a damn shame for an offensive coordinator who is involved with one of the most prolific offenses we've probably seen in the last decade. This guy doesn't get a look, a serious look for a head coaching position. No offense to the offensive coordinator from Philadelphia who got hired in Indianapolis. I mean, I get it, but your track record and your credentials do not match up to Eric Bieniemy. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. Like I said, I'm surprised he took that position in Washington, but good luck to him. Good luck to him. But like I said, next week, like I said, training camp starts for rookies. A week later, veterans will be in. So I'm kind of looking at, some of the position battles. You do have some rookies out here possibly competing for starting positions. I'm of the mindset of, if you draft a guy in the first round as a quarterback, you need to go ahead and just throw him into the fire. I mean, Peyton Manning looked like trash his rookie year, but now he's in the Hall of Fame. Let them get their lumps. The days of rookies holding a clipboard are gone. I mean, you trade up for these guys, you give up multiple years of first round picks and all of that kind of stuff. Let these guys play. And I think, speaking of, trading picks and that kind of stuff, we're talking about Trey Lance. Short leash. And you would think he wouldn't have a short leash, but we're going into year 3. We have no game film of you. No serious game film of you. I mean, but they're going to give you a chance to be the starter because they gave up heaven and earth to get you. They traded up to get you in the draft. So good luck to him. I hope, that's one of the position battles I'm looking forward to kind of breaking down as we kind of really get geared up for the NFL. I'm geeked up. Favorite time of year. Slap on the pads. Let's go. Oh man. Let me kind of get up out of here. You don't like these shows to be too long. Like I said, may take a break for the rest of the week as I kind of look over some other stuff. But yeah, starting Monday, team by team breakdowns, training camp, who's in position to start, who's not, changes made. We're going to do a real in-depth team by team breakdown. If it's not your team, please come and watch the show anyway. Please come and watch the show either way, because some of these guys we talk about may end up on your team at some point this season. Let me get my behind up out of here, man. Still to the grind, still to the grind. Y'all know the phrase that pays around here. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but every time you learn. And I'm out.